Okay, hello everyone and welcome to this price ladder analysis stream. I wanted to actually go through something we saw last week. The market we're going to be taking a look at is the Euro Stoxx 50. We're going to be taking a look at the ECB day, which is the 10th of March 2016. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at what happened after the event, so after we got the announcement. If you take a look at the chart very briefly and succinctly, you can see we had this very large move up, as you can see right in here when we had the announcement at 12:45. We kind of ranged in here. We failed to take out the high here at 30s, 26s, came off, took out these lows here at 3100, and then we started making our way to the downside, and effectively we just started flagging a little bit right in here. Now that flag obviously could have broken to the upside or could have broken to the downside. So we're going to take a look at what happens just after that and see how we could have traded that in that very moment. Obviously, we did get a huge bazooka from the ECB, but nonetheless, we're not going to be paying attention to the fundamentals, just purely focusing on the price action that we saw around that time. Okay, so let's just wait a few seconds for this to just load up so we can kind of get everything together. Okay, here we go. So as you can see here, we're trading 30.85s. We know the low of that little flag was around 30.80s. And the high of that was just above there, probably around the 90s region. We're slowly coming down towards that 80s price now. Let's just pay attention to how we trade around here. We're trading around the 81s now. Bid 81s, 1,300 lots at 80s. Notice how we're getting towards that price. He's just pulled it at 80s, and we've gone offered at 80s. So overall, the price action now not looking too conducive for a buy. If you're looking to buy this, obviously, after that kind of big announcement, someone that, for the market participants to actually be pulling their bids is not really what you want to be seeing. Then you can see we've just gone through those 76s and 75s. Basically got pulled. We've traded. Someone's now hit market, 300 lots hitting a market here at 74s, offered 74s. We're doing more volume on the way down than on the way up. And if we take a look at the bids and offers, we're just blipping down lower towards these 68s, 1,500 lots sitting at 68s. Let's see how it interacts with these 68s now. And if we move a little bit lower, we can see at 60s, we've got a pretty big bid. We've just taken that out, and the market's just slowly, well, actually, not slowly, quite quickly reversing the move that we saw initially. We've broken that area at 80s. Now, let's just see if we interact here. Buy in front of these 60s here. We've gotten filled at these 61s, 2,000 lots just guarding us. We haven't had the best evidence that the market's willing to hold these big bids. It's just been pulling recently. But let's just see how we react here. We've just bought at 61s, front run that little bid, taking a few ticks out of it. We're bidding 61s again. Now, so you guys note, the previous major high was at 30.55s before we broke out. So 30.55s was our previous major high. We've just gotten filled on those 61s, and now we've gone offered through those 60s. So this is not looking too good for us at the minute. So what we're going to try and do now is, obviously, we don't want to be holding on to this position because now it's been taken. We're going to take that 2-tick loss and watch the price action. Now, obviously, we know it's 60s and 61s is where we had that first little bit of a bounce. If the market can actually hold an offer now, maybe we might see a bit of a flush to the downside. We're now bid 61s, trading 62s. Kind of struggling to hold our bid at 61s. As you can see, every time we try and go bid 61s or 62s, we keep reloading. So we're going to just offer 60, or we actually hit market to 62s. We're loading even more at 61s. We're going to add another 5 lots here at 61s. This is just ahead of this area. And we're just looking for potentially a small flush down to those 55s to see if we can get all those aggressive buyers, those people that were sitting in the way of this down move, might actually need to start covering here. This is a very small speculative short. Obviously we're still bullish after this news, but just given the way we're reacting, 61s cannot hold a bid, and we're now offered 60s, offered 59s, 58s, offered 57s, now trading through around these 55s, and now you can see everyone that's just been buying in those regions is now covering underneath this high. This is a very key area of support. So now that we're getting through those 55s, you can see the reaction is quite swift. Now on a blip, we probably want to be covering a little bit of our size, seeing how we can react to the rest of this. We're just trading down to these 37s. We've now come up from 37s up to 42s, 45s, about 5 to 6 ticks higher. The first 5 to 6 tick move higher in literally all of this down move. So what we're going to try and do now is try and cover around this region if we can, if we get the opportunity to. It seems as if we're just blipping higher now. I'm going to try and find an area in which we can actually try and offload our other 5 lot. You see the market's moving a little bit quick. We don't want to hold this through the 55s. We're going to try and scale out somewhere if we can just get a little bit more of a down move back down to that area. On this trade at the minute, because we're currently short and we're not looking for this to get above 55s, as soon as we take 55s out, I'm giving it literally up until 58s, and that's where effectively I'll put my stop in, which hasn't worked, but we can hit that manually. If we trade 58s, I'm out 58s. That's 58s, I'm out 58s. So overall execution wasn't brilliant, but what we've noticed here is in these sort of patterns where you get on obviously a very large move to the upside on some news, you have to imagine, guys, that the bigger time frame players aren't quickly hitting this news. They're kind of waiting to have their board meetings, assess and reflect on what the ECB said, and then take their position. So what you often see sometimes, even though the news might be very, very much bullish, sometimes what you get instead, you get this very, very big move to the upside. As we can see, we then came down a bit lower. We failed to take that high, and then we moved below key, what you would call very, very key support in a market that's potentially looking to move higher. Then, as you could see before we actually started the replay, we had a little bit of a flag formation in here, which after the fact we could see broke that little area. And then what we saw afterwards, when we took out those 80s, we saw some very decent volume to the downside. We came into some very key support here that was at 30.55 region. The market, well, actually before we got there, we actually had the 30.61 region, which we took out. So the market took out that level, came back up to that level. So let's just draw that across. Market took out that level, came back up to that level, and at this area in here is where we saw all of the reloading. So we took out that level, we had a 2,000 lot, went through that price, came back up to 61, 62s, reloaded, then tested down to these 55s quite quickly, went through the 55s, and then we saw the flush. So overall, on these types of patterns, what are we looking for? Effectively, if we can get through these key confidence levels and you're seeing areas that shouldn't be taken get taken out, just notice the price action around the areas where people are getting involved, where people are putting in big bids, where potentially we might see, at 60s we had a 2,000 lot, people might have front run that, which we did initially. Then eventually we went offside, and when we came back to that level, as we noticed, this region here, back up to that level, if you're seeing reloading on the offer, well, you don't really want to be just glued to the idea that this is bullish. Whatever the news may be, even if the news is very bullish, the price action is telling you what's going on, and effectively it's not lying to you. Price always tells the truth. So if there's one moral of the story in this kind of in this price ladder analysis stream, is really just pay attention to what the price is telling you. To be honest with you, during this event, the reason why I went through this again is just sort of a self-reflection of how I traded it. I kind of got caught up in this whole idea of this had to be a buy no matter where you bought it. But eventually when we got through that area, because I actually bought in front of those 30.61s and basically held my nuts offside too long until I had to flush out and pay the lows. So the moral of the story here is pay attention to what the price is telling you. No matter what the fundamental is, don't get stuck to your bias and read the price action, read the order flow. If it's telling you something that's countering what you think, either don't trade or maybe potentially look for everyone else that's stuck within that mind frame to get squeezed out. So yeah, thanks guys very, very much for listening. Hopefully we all learned something from this, and stay tuned for more. We'll be doing a lot more of these streams every Tuesday, price ladder analysis streams. This is Miltos, Services for Futex Live. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.